Welcome back to the International Radio Day in N10 Building, Valila, Helsinki, Finland, presented by Station of Commons. I am Gregoire Rousseau, member of Station of Commons, together with Eddie Choo Wen Yi, Mathilde Palenius and Iuliana, helping today. And we are delighted to welcome Leda from the studio The Visit. I said welcome. I should much more said welcome back, because you've been here before and the situation was different.
Hello. Yes, I'm glad to be here. I'm hosting and producing the Visit podcast. So you were one of my guests. Was it more than a year ago now? I'm not even sure when exactly it was.
Something like a year ago.
Or about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be back.
Welcome back. The reason, when we conceptualized and thought what could be the program being centered around the artists within the building, and to organize series of interviews to know how they relate to the building, their material condition, their political understanding, and so on, I immediately thought of you because this is part of your work within the Visit podcast. You go to visit people. So I thought it would be interesting to reverse the situation, that N10 Building is actually inviting you to reflect a bit on the situation. You have a large practice of interviewing people.
It's almost 3 years now.
3 years now, so it's maybe countless, or I don't know, an estimation of maybe 50, I don't know.
Well, to this day, it's like 57.
57. So you.
I'm kind of counting it.
Yeah, you keep the record sharp. And maybe the first question would be, what do you think, or what have you experienced of people relating to their space?
Oh, so many things. It's always interesting to go see somebody's space, because that very much also reveals them as the person and their workflows and how they do things and how they arrange the space. So of course, like it's not like a portrait of the person, but it's always fascinating to see. I don't know. I think there are different aspects to that.
Because I will mention that before this discussion, we had the interview of an open discussion with Ville Valavour, and it seems that we share the same, let's say, practice of studio, that we want to keep things separated, like what happens at home stays at home, and then in the studio space is the studio space. So it's kind of important to keep separated the professional and the personal.
There are many people who have that approach, but there are also those who don't mind merging both. And it's funny that you say that, because I know that Atelier Satio has this, or is it Atelier Satio? I'm not sure. Who runs these artists' apartments in Helsinki that are combined, like a living area and the studio. It's in one. In different neighborhoods they have that. So I guess that's for those other people who prefer to have it all in one.
Okay.
I have it all in one. My home and studio is the same place, but I live alone too, so it's a really different experience too. Yeah. According to the exhibition apartment that you mentioned, I have visited once. I can't remember the name. My friend invited me. It's a very tiny apartment in Punavori. And
in Punavori they have them also.
I think so. So it's getting this kind of vibe that people more and more offer their home, not tiny apartment, but in Punavori it can be big too. Yeah. So maybe you would like to elaborate more about this apartment.
I know of, for example, in Mulupuru they have a whole street with around 10 maybe.
Wow.
It's like a row houses.
Okay.
That they have a massive studio in the back and like a kitchen, and on top of that it's like a room thing. I have one guest who has an apartment in those. I haven't been to the room part of things. I don't know how that looks like, but the studio is really, really nice. There's so much space in it, and the ceilings are very high. So yeah, it seems there. I don't know how is the day-to-day living there, especially if you work with some sort of more toxic.
How do you see
stuff?
like this kind of a studio and also this kind of a exhibition space connection? I mean, the studio space, like living space, is very tight with the residency like period, you know, like this kind of 3-month abroad residency. So the people live there at the same time. They kind of have an open studio. People visit there. So I don't know if this kind of a situation that to distinguish between studio and home. I mean, of course, other people have different needs and different what is called different preference what they want. So I'm the person. I'm not against studio and home together. You know, back in the day, I mean, you know, if we talk about like a lot of things is actually started with garage. But the thing is, not everyone own a garage nowadays. You know,
that is true.
So you need to have like this kind of DIY spirit, no matter where you are. No, and how do you see this like exhibition space and also the practices? Yeah.
I mean, the studio is not necessarily an exhibition space because I think in most cases it's mostly a workspace, and not everybody does open studios like that and wants to have people come in so openly. But I guess it depends on the person's character. Like some people don't mind; they are open to the world. Some people are more enclosed. So I guess it just depends. I don't mind it personally, but I also don't have a studio that is in my home.
Because I'm still studying in school in Kuvada Academia, and then I'm about to graduate, and my classmate was saying that, no, Eddie, you can't like, you have a sleeping problem, you cannot just work in your home, you have a problem. And then later I was like, but you can't call a musician, then don't put a piano in their home if they're playing piano all day long. And in fact, maybe, okay, let's call this all white man musicians are famous, Mozart and who else that I know?
Miles Davis.
Yeah, most of the pianists, they have a piano at their home.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. I want to believe so. It's like how would you, like how much time you need to spend time to go to the studio and then come back? I mean, I stand with my theory, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
My theory. So everyone can have their own preference, what they want, what kind of life they want, and what kind of things they do. If imagine everyone do the same thing, it's how boring it is. Like Ville say, you know. Yeah. So I stand with that, and I also think that it's actually. I mean, the studio space is perfect, but it's just like how a person to navigate the personal space and also the working time. Like, how do we divide the time? But do we want to divide the time? I'm always questioning these two. You know, when the time you are most relaxing, then you were inspiring.
Yes.
At some point, you're working too. Greg, you want to share about that?
Yes, I can share about that because it reminds me why I decided to not work for the industry anymore. When I graduated as an electrical engineer, I started to work for the industry and, you know, making those electronic design and so on. And then all of a sudden I realized that, but what if I get the solution for this project like on weekend? Like I don't get paid for that. So there is a little scam going on there. Like I was wondering, like, but why? Of course there are different spaces, but once at home, my brain is still active, you know, and I still think of things, and you cannot like clear cut the separation. And I thought, okay, like if I find opportunity to escape this industry realm, then I will work more for myself as artist, because if I have ideas or if I find specific solution, then it would be for myself at least.
Yeah, and some people say that if you combine the work and life, you get burned out more quickly. I don't know, I haven't tried like too long. Personally, I prefer to have a little bit of a walk from my home to the studio. Not too much of a walk, but a little bit.
I think that we live in a society, in any case, that will lead to burnout. So we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, we have to have our own discipline and our own regulation of how much work we put and how we carve some space for rest. For sure, it doesn't matter if you're in the studio all the time or not. Still, you have to pay attention to also have some rest.
And then maybe to come back to to the studio life of artists? How do they relate to the community they are around them?
When I was in university, I was in Aalto, and I took one course, and the professor took us to his studio.
Oh, who was this person?
He was in photography. Nicole Wama was the teacher, and he was. I guess he wanted to show us the importance of the studio generally, like for an artist, that this is your main occupation and main space where you spend a lot of time there. So one should pay attention to the studio they have, for sure. So maybe that stuck a little bit with me. And then also with my own studio searches and changes and the people that I have met, I feel like having a studio in a place where there's a community of other creative people, artists, like in similar fields, preferably, is very important. And it can be super isolating even if you have the best studio, but you're alone there all the time. Like you can go mad. So yeah. I would say grouping communities is kind of a must.
I think, my dear friend, we will have to share the same microphone.
Oh no!
Oh no, it's such a sad situation, but we will still do our best. I think that if I may speak about my situation in this building, I really appreciate having not only neighbors as Billy, but to share the space with Alex as well. I think it's quite important. It's not that we chit-chat all the time or that we have this long conversation. Like we work on our side, but it's very important to have someone every now and then next that, you know, if you wonder something, you can just ask and speak out this question. And it may be a very short moment, but they change the course of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know there are people who enjoy also to be more separate, but I feel like most of us really appreciate to have some company. And I can say that after, I don't know, 6 different studios that I have changed.
Wow, you have a long history of studio.
I'm now for the first time sharing a space there in this community. I'm in Grey Garden Studios, that is in Merihaka, and it's so much better. Like,
which room do you share, for instance?
I mean, I don't share the room itself, but it's multiple small rooms that are sharing common space.
Oh, I don't know what happens. This is the thing with audio. Sometimes the techniques fail us, but we are back on track and we still have a lot of time to discuss. Easy. I'm sitting in the sofa. Everybody, welcome back again, International Radio Day, Station of Commons. I think that now we are back on track because it's been some sweat, but now we are still good people.
And I am recording also this session, so possibly, maybe if my sound works afterwards, people can hear the discussion, the full discussion.
Yes, but I don't think it got so bad. It was just like up and down, but this is something.
Yeah, this happens.
Did it happen to you, this kind of situation?
Not exactly the same because my podcast is not live.
Ah, yes, of course.
I have time to fix things a little bit.
Is it something you considered?
No, not really, because I mean, for some people it's already stressful that there's a camera in the room.
Ah, yes.
So if it's live, it's a double stress. I would not want to put people into that. But I have had hiccups with the sound for sure. Mm-hmm. Once there was, because my camera records in 20-minute increments, then it stops because it overheats otherwise. So we're recording with one of my guests, and I record the sound separately. And towards the end of those 20 minutes, I just decided to check the sound wave to see like how it goes. And I see that it's very samey. Somehow it's very, like it's one block. There's no variation. I was like, oh, there's something going on here. What's going on? But like I just turned it off and on again and it was fine. And we did the recording. And then when I went home to edit, it had got stuck on the first second. Oh. And it was repeating 20 minutes that first second.
Ah, so you had a sampler.
I don't know what it was. It was like, it was a pickle, yeah. But thankfully, the camera also records its own sound, so I have like a
so you
little
had
bit
the
like
backup.
backup.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, that's additional editing, how to make that sound bearable and stuff. But yeah.
The magic of post-production.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it can save the day. I hope we will be able to save part of this beginning discussions. And again, like the visit podcast, you mentioned that one inspiration may have been this teacher taking you to their own studio and this somehow was the trigger point for you to investigate what could be studio practice at large?
I mean, I don't know, maybe somehow subconsciously it affected, but I got the idea for the podcast a little later.
Of course, yes.
With the main goal to just meet more artists. Because I was not born in Finland, I came here 11 years ago. I didn't study in Kuva Taideakademia, and I found out that after you graduate, you just feel so alone all of a sudden, because
yes,
many people go somewhere else. For example, I was in a very international program, so probably half the people left the country already. Then some other were not practicing as artists, so I was all of a sudden there like with a couple of friends, and and it was that was my main motivation to start the podcast, honestly. But then after a while, I figured out that it could also be good for the guests themselves, because some people use the recording for their own promotion afterwards, or to just present themselves, because I am asking them a lot of questions about their own practice, and we talk about the studio for sure, but not only about the studio. And just sharing these stories of people, I think that other people who could watch them afterwards or listen to them could also relate. We talk about the problems of being an artist, just like generally what it's like to be an artist professionally, and we have very common points.
Most surely. I mean, studio is very important part of artistic practice. It's this place that you close the door and then anything can happen. So I'm sure that all of the artists you've been questioning and interviewing on their relation to studio, then is it gone? No, it's fine. It cannot. Hello? Yeah. We can hear. Okay. So it will be the red line of this discussion, my microphone being a bit problematic. But let's come back to this studio space, because I think artistic practice changes from one to another, and I think that some of them may not use the studio as production space, but more as a thinking place or writing space.
Yeah, absolutely. There are those people. And especially there are people who also, like you mentioned earlier, that you live and work in the same small apartment. You cannot really do big production in a living room. If a person wants to do a bigger installation and then the studio is too small, even if you have a studio, it might not always work for the production part. So there's all kinds of situations. But definitely having this separate space where you can just sit with yourself and with your thoughts and experiment is really important to be able to develop your practice further.
And for instance, has there been people who said no, like the interview is not going to happen?
That has happened also.
So there are some people who really want to protect their space and not...
I mean, I don't know if it's because of the space or just some people are more shy. Some people are like, I don't want to be recorded on camera, broadcasted on the internet. Yes. In Finland especially, there are many shy people who are just not comfortable talking about their work so openly.
Yes.
And I understand that. Because
of course. And this practice of visiting artists in the studio, how much did it, or did you reflect on it for yourself? Have you had some own inspiration moment?
It has been almost medicinal for me.
Therapeutic.
I am so glad I started doing this, even though I was just thinking about it for a couple of years. It was just brewing in my head, like, I should do this thing. But then there's a bit of a threshold, like, I was also uncomfortable to record myself and listen to myself and just like, oh my God, the beginning was terrible. But definitely the more you talk with people, the more you reflect also on your own work, and you understand how other people talk about theirs, how they present themselves, what they accentuate on. Just like this has been invaluable.
What do you would notice in common when you ask people about their space? What would be the first thing you've noticed people would bring to the front?
Maybe in the majority of cases, people would just say it's not big enough.
Oh, really?
They would really like to have a bigger space.
Bigger space, more window, cheaper.
No, the window and the cheaper part they haven't mentioned so much, but the size of the space, I think. I mean, also, even if you have a very big space and you get used to it after a while, and then you're like, oh, but it could be even bigger, you know? So, yeah.
No, I don't complain about the space. I'm quite happy with the
But
studio.
you have a sound practice that doesn't take too much space.
You know me as you know me as a sound artist, but I used to do other things before. So it's yes. But what is for sure is that having a larger space allows to produce larger work. I mean, like a painter in a small space cannot make paintings beyond the space. I mean, he has to produce, or unless there are some secret techniques.
100%. No. I think the space affects a lot the size of the work, and yeah, I think I don't have proof for that, but it's my theory that even just conceptually, like the space affects your mind. That how big a work should be in the end, even if you can produce it somewhere else. I don't know. I think that if a person has a bigger space, they tend to think bigger work before they make it.
I mean, the size is one thing, but I know that when I start a new project or like a new thing, I need to clean studio before. So in that sense, it reflects to what you say, like the space we have defined as well, the space we have in the brain available. And then when I begin something, I clean. And then as it gets messy, the work progress. And usually when it reaches the point, the messiness maximum point, then the work is complete. And then I can start something else and clean. This is my own process.
It's good to have clear points of how you work, because sometimes a person might not be able to tell when the work is done. But if you have this like very obvious signal, then
yeah, but most of the time there are deadlines or opening, or it has to be done at this day, or sometimes you work with other people and then you give your commitment that some certain things will be completed at a certain point, so that the other person can take on the job to go to the next phase and so on. So
yeah, I mean, if you have those, for sure that there's nothing like a deadline for
what?
For the power of motivation and
yeah, but we all know time and space go together. So
but if you don't have a specific deadline for a project, it can just go on and on sometimes.
Always.
Yeah, but I cannot help myself thinking that one needs a empty space to start new things. Otherwise it's affecting the same way. You cannot start anything if the space is taken, mentally and physically to some extent.
I could agree.
How do we empty a mental space?
By completing a project, project is not the right term, but like completing this one thing one has in mind. Because as that's something that I've said, and we have those ideas, they find form, and then they have to somehow confront certain audience, or they have to go public to some extent. And this going public cannot be only halfway. It is public or not public, no? And we are not last century of artists producing in their own studio, mostly for themselves, and then a collectioner comes visit.
Well, I disagree.
Great.
I disagree from a very different context. Yeah, because I think if we cannot know ourselves, how can we help better developing the society? Because we are in the society. This is something that I really think that is very important, to have access to own history, because not everyone have the access to the own history. Like, for example, if we talk about, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper, like because of the colonization throughout the time, it prevented some people access to their own history. Like, for example, I cannot know, because I'm a Malaysian and I'm a fourth generation living in Malaysia, but I'm a Malaysian Chinese, but I don't have the access to the ancestor, and that quite struggled me at that point. Is also affecting how how is this own history actually also affecting my own artistic practice, because the languages I speak and how I develop things is actually tied with the personal too. So I won't say that like I'm a very different kind of artist compared to Gregoire. I stay home and then I discover myself, because I see that me myself is a living, not object. Object is not the right word. I'm a living creature in the society. Even though I hide it in my own apartment, but I still need to pay the rent. I need still to secure myself, no? So it happened, I will still in part of the society. And my problem is not just my problem. My problem is I'm just one of the amongst of the others. So I will see that to focus on myself. Oh my God, sounds like narcissistic, but this is not the intention of that. It's
Of
just
course
like
not.
to assess to my own what I can have is so much related that how I do the work that review the society structure too. This is how I see it. Yeah, I mean in that sense. So I will disagree what Gregoire say, but I'm allowed to disagree.
Of course.
Everyone have their own opinion because based on the different background and stuff. Yes, I see you have something wanted to reflect.
No, I mean, I'm glad you disagree, because that's a proper discussion then, isn't it? Yeah, I lost my thoughts somewhere. I wanted to say something in the middle of what you were saying, and then I lost it.
Hiding in the cave.
I'm not sure. Maybe it was, you were saying that in your practice you draw a lot from your history and yourself and your culture.
Like not just my history, because
Or
like the so much, there's so much part of my own family history that I cannot access. Like for example, I don't know how my ancestor and when do exactly they come, because there's no let's call no evidence or no documented archive was like passing on. But this is quite often happen to the migrants, because surviving is much more important than you clinging on those objects that prove you exist. First you need to exist and survive, then you can decide you exist, you know. So I think it's a different kind of a situation and privilege when we talk about who do what and where. Yeah, it's a different reality, but I have good time working with Gregoire. We learn from each other quite a lot. Yeah.
I guess it depends on the type of practice that you have also, because I mean, there are people who don't take so much from their background or historically or culturally in what they do. So in that case, I guess it wouldn't matter if they have the access or not.
It's maybe my turn to disagree, because I mean, everybody takes their own history in their work, and it's already because to some extent, if you don't, you can afford that you don't.
I mean, the everything is political, no, nothing is political thing. I guess it's just I don't know.
I mean, how to say no to? I mean, how, because everybody has different history, no?
Yeah, but how much of that you consciously take into the work
yes,
itself?
it is what I meant,
thing.
consciously or unconsciously.
I think people are not consciously is a privilege. You know, it's not a privilege. It might be a lot of situation if we wanted to unfold. You know, because it's not by default, or people can just study until a university level that can support, financially support, and which is how the country or the what is it called, the system of the country like actually is creating a different kind of system security for the people. But this is I'm going back to like everything is related with resource, you know. Yeah, and of course like beside the resources also like let's come back to the studio a bit. Yeah, because like my age, like my friend who are still working as an artist in Malaysia, they have their own studio. Like I have few different kind of friends who work as an artist. So I started painting in the very beginning, graduated in 2010 actually, and it happened I somehow still a student now after 10-12 years.
Maybe you like it. Huh?
Well, why not?
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's a privilege. You get education, and then you get educated how to debate for the people that why you don't have the privilege because we lack of resources. Then you need to find this you need to find the reference and articulate properly. And I found it like better to articulate like why it was like, it's when people tell me that it's good that you come to Finland and then you study. It was like, but the thing is like I wish I can do the same thing in Malaysia, but it's not that accessible for me to the resources. There's so many layers need to unfold in there. Of course, I understand that I have a different kind of privilege from my friend. I'm come back to this. Come back to the studio.
Sure.
So my friend, like two type of my friend, and they're both like they're both men. Now, man and woman have a really different destiny regarding to all kind of career, especially in maybe in art career too. And two of my friend, one he is a painter, so he make a huge painting. So he signed a contract from the gallery. It's quite international, no? And the gallery is like organizing the residency in UK, in China for him. Another friend is like he also do painting, but he don't do oil. He do acrylic. But he
do what?
Acrylic painting. So another one is do oil painting.
Yeah.
So it's really different the material, you know. And the acrylic painters, like he finally got an award a long time ago. For a really long time, more than about 8 years. Then he finally like he got seen. Even though man, both is men, and woman. Where are those women? They disappear.
In the kitchen.
No, maybe not in the kitchen.
No, kidding. Sometimes they are in the kitchen, but like,
yeah. Well, I'm
more and
not
more
against
not.
with the kitchen. I love to cook too. Why not? Gregoire also loves to cook too. And it's very different that friend, he need to work the whole time, like to sustain his studio. And his studio is on this kind of factory area. Most of the migrant actually is more like illegal worker who live there, and he have to use this kind of place for the studio. So the studio space in Malaysia and also in what I understand in Finland is really different, because in Finland have like, I think it's good to unfold a little bit the studio situation in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe Gregoire, you can tell more because you are in this studio organization space. You can tell more because I don't have a studio.
I think that studio is quite a privilege. Yeah, definitely, because already in the first place you have to pay the rent. Like studio don't come from free. Technically, my situation is that I've been here many years, so I still have the old school contract. So I really don't pay much compared to someone that would acquire this building right now. And again, having a studio is really not easy. I have stories from people in the... It's after Heltoniemi. Yes, exactly. Like I've heard crazy stories that the building is in awful condition. When it rains inside the studio. The owner don't take care at all. Communication don't happen. They pay the rent, but sometimes electricity is not paid, and they have the artwork store there. They have to move, but then to find something for the same price is very difficult. So studio is not finding a good studio is not so easy at all. So that is the situation here in Finland. As artists, it's already quite difficult to survive as artists, and then find the money for the rent of the studio is not easy either, even though it is the condition to produce artwork. So we find in this situation, many artists, especially graduating artists, find themselves in this situation that they would need to invest a bit to be able to produce, hoping to sell or to sustain this activity. So that's the tricky part. Yes, definitely.
That's when people gather together in a community and are able to. Oh.
Yes. Sorry. I was just next door.
Say your
listening.
name. Say your name.
And yes, I'm Mathilde. I'm also part of Station of Comments, and I was just listening to the whole discussion. But it's because I wrote my thesis around this topic. But I find this interesting that nowadays, and we're talking about in Finland, the situation with using old factories as places for arts and culture and for studios, because Anton was one of them, but also like Sugilahti and Cable Factory. Yep. They're all like actually owned by
that would be the discussion later on. Yes.
And I find this interesting when we speak about community and how, like nowadays, factories in Europe, actually it's not just in Finland, it's in Europe, they have been moved out of the city center, and now how all these buildings, like the which were factories, are now used towards the art, like for art purposes, and how like now we're talking about building communities and how each person has their own studio and how you build this community within a space. So here, like, it's interesting for me that we organize today this International Radio Day in N10, and focusing on how people are here together and hearing a bit about stories, how people are like working together in one space with having their own practice also. And I find this interesting how we link like what happened actually to these factory workers and how like neighborhoods with the factory where people working in factories were actually gathering together and like to defend their rights also, and understanding how they live together, and how like it's interesting to think that now it's the art and people working in the art who are in these buildings, and how it's like what do we do with this, and how nowadays actually factories have been moved out of the city to a bit dismantle also these communities that were being built around the neighborhood, and to create to try to create this space where people can work together and not feeling too depressed, but at the same time doing so that the workers, they are not anymore living all really nearby each other. So having factories outside of the city, then you don't have this closed neighborhood anymore. And it creates this, yes. I find this interesting because then we can question also about studios and what could be the future of studios. Are these buildings going to be kept forever as studios for artists? And how it can impact also these communities that artists can build, and especially in our conditions nowadays with the cuts, and how more and more difficult it's becoming for artists to live. This is a big thing, but I wanted to share this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Mathilde. I think it's a very good point that you're talking about the factory is moving out, but I also want to mention one thing because it's part of my thesis too. We all talk about thesis now.
No, everybody's about my. That is my.
No, it's not about my thesis or my research. It's just my research is open to another direction. So where is those factory? Are they only located outside?
No,
of the city?
no, of course not.
No,
it's outside of the country and the continent.
Yeah. Totally. This is the direction, but if we want to narrow down, still talk about the studio and also the cultural industry. This is something that maybe we wanted to see, because I think I can only use the example from Malaysia because Malaysia don't have this kind of culture ministry. Actually, the art and culture is under the tourism. It's very interesting, and this is how Malaysia was independent from Britain. Yeah, so you can see how actually those things are developed. But I wanted to talk about using this kind of factory become a studio in not just happen in Finland. I think it's happened everywhere. Not just Europe, even in Asia too. They transform the factory, become a cultural production place. This is another kind of transformation. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was in November in Hong Kong, and I was talking with some artists there. I mean, the episodes are still coming on the podcast, but they also said the same thing, that, and not only about artist studios, that all the factories that used to be working in Hong Kong that are now gone or moved somewhere else, but also gallery spaces. We went to some gallery openings in a place that you would never, if you don't know that there's a gallery there, you would never ever think about it, because it's on the 10th floor of a ex-factory building, and there's a gallery.
Yeah.
So
Hong Kong is a very extreme example, but actually I happen to know more than 10 years ago, I think 15 years ago, when I was in Malaysia. So I met a guy, actually they make a lot of independent or more music event in the factory, but Hong Kong, they have this kind of rules. You cannot live in the factory, but in fact, a lot of people illegally live in there. So you've been to Hong Kong, you know a bit, yeah. So, yeah, and this kind of situation, that how is this law from the building actually they are what is the word? Like they're stopping the people doing all kind of different activities there because they use this kind of, because I forgot what is the name, but it's very important. They talk about we come from factory, but it's in Cantonese. So this was the one guy who were making this kind of event and stuff. Is very important. So how is there try to smuggle this kind of like event in the studio space, which is in the factory, and those factory back in the days, it was a factory, or they're made for factory use. But this is come back to like now we stay in studio in the factory. Doesn't mean also that means that we're also producing something, and back to this kind of what Gregoire have said that we have like we embrace this kind of studio DIY spirit. So how do you see that, Gregoire? You're now back in this. Is that a medication factory building, yes. And then you're pushing this DIY spirit, and how do you see this context and your understand?
I think you're correct when you describe that part of the cultural industry, but I think the word that is there is gentrification. Mm-hmm. This is part of the gentrification, and as we know, if you know the term gentrification, you're part of the problem. Yes. And this is always within a urban strategy, because that is, as you mentioned, if you look at Kallio, for instance, it used to be the worker, the popular part of town, and now it's something else. And Valila is definitely part of it. It's maybe the next one. And you look at the price of the rent. When I got this space, it was super cheap. The rent is only increasing, and even though it is increasing, it is still considered cheap.
Yeah.
So it is this. I just finished. It is maybe this duality that people have more and more creative practice that may or may not generate money, and there is still need for the space to produce this cultural object. Even radio may be considered as cultural object. And it makes the space rent to increase. So actually, the more we produce quality things here, the more it increases the rent to some extent. And the more we increase rent, the more we evict ourselves. So that's a bit the trap that we should try to, in the first place, be aware and then negotiate with the company owning the space. And I hope that we will be able to open this discussion in the next discussion.
But I just want to mention that in the case of M10, Subilahti, Cable Factory, it's all the same company, but the company is owned by the city of Helsinki.
Yep.
So now we get to, like, there are other studios also, like I think in Merihaka or like in Lauttasaari also and so on. And these ones, they are private. And I know a few friends artists who are there, and it's actually cheaper than the ones owned by the city. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it also, because you're speaking about this duality and somehow, and like kind of competition also to what you can get and how close in the center you can get them. And yeah, because somehow like maybe these buildings like owned by the city, like company owned by the city, these ones are maybe safer somehow because it's not for now planned to change them, because like especially when we think of Subilahti and Cable Factory, these are buildings anyway which need to stay as they are, and then they're used to be rented, and it's actually, it makes profit for the city. And then it's a bit different because there isn't much space to actually rent out for companies and so on, but I'm sure there is some reason to keep it. And and I just wanted to think about like also this thing of who to speak with about prices of studios, and how like when we speak about gentrification also, where are they located and what's price then they are put on by being like owned by the city of Helsinki or owned privately. And it's more like a open thought.
I think it's still not more expensive when per square meter, the price when it's when you rent from Cable Factory, for example, versus the private. I think the private is still higher price. per square meter.
Okay.
The thing is that in cable factory, the studios are generally bigger. So I guess that, of course, raises the general price.
I have a not question, but it's more like a reflection that why are we, I don't know who I'm talking about, that why are artists counting on a system, counting on a CD system? I mean, this is a very, very, very typical situation in Finland, in other country. Maybe you need to check with the cable. Yeah, but I have an example actually from my friend who based in Berlin. Actually, because they have this kind of studio problem in Berlin, you know, throughout the time. And she's a German and she lived in Berlin even since beginning 2000. So the studio prices keep going up, even though the government have controlled it. And the city control it, even though there's a different kind of situation. But then they come out with the plan that, okay, they decide to have this co-op, which is the artists own their own building and they run themselves and sustain, instead of like giving the power to another organization to manage and control. Of course, my friend told me that there's much more thing they need to manage and take care of it, instead of like you just do your own practice. So you don't engage with all this kind of thing, because the administrative is very, very not that thing. But my friend also learned a lot, and she shared this kind of experience to me. It somehow come to my mind that, okay, everyone want to own their own garage. Yeah, and I think in Finland, or more like this kind of structures, society structure, there's so much is like, it's not bad, it's good. The fact is, for me, from my perspective, from my context, it's way too good. Until the people think, either take it as granted, or like it's, you need to fit yourself into this box to get the resources, no? And I just decided I don't want to get into this box, so I stay in my home. I was like, why would I go to studio on the daytime when my home is empty? And I still paying the rent, and I also need to pay the rent for the studio and pay two sides of the Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? So I have my own debate, and it suits my and then the things I wanted to say is what kind of model we can create for ourselves, instead of like counting on the structure already have. Yeah. I guess this is why I also enjoy Stational Commons, because we don't really use a physical space, you know. What happened to that?
Well, we using Gregoire studio actually, and when we have to meet. But I wanted to come back to the point also of you mentioning there are many artists who, like, most of the time they need their own space and independence and so on. But when we're talking and what's happening today with N10, it's like actually to strengthen and to show a bit that there is some community happening in the building. And I feel that in nowadays situation, like in our current world, where like there's a lot of this individualism and being alone, I feel that if we don't have access and we can't have the spaces to work, like if you need your own space, of course, as an artist, like to have your practice, but I think it's important that we keep also structures where people can meet in the art field and can like be next to each other and create this network and create communities, because without this then we just go deep down inside like this, like our current like system where it's all about like individualism, and then you disappear somehow and you have less strength, less like power and voice. That if there are things like happening that, like when we think about like public cuts which have happened, or like you need this space also to gather as a community. And even if now we have all this online access to share and to know each other, like there is a need, and I think that's what's important, to have like these basements, whether studios are like spaces for art and culture, where you can actually meet physically and know that each other is here. And that's why to me it's like, if artists don't have anymore the means and the possibility to actually have this space outside of their home, then it creates this like bubbles even more, and that at least I see this like that it would be like a way to also get less voice and less power for artists in our society nowadays.
Yes. No, I wanted to add just that in a situation when you do have the studio and there are other artists around, this place that you're talking about is usually the common space that you would have, like a kitchen or some sort of a dining room or someplace like that. Do you have that here in this building?
Yeah, we have. We have that here, and this is where the discussion with the Kelbo factory people will happen. And that will be in almost an hour. And I think that very unfortunately it will be time to close this discussion. Leda,
But we just started.
We just started, I know, and
There will be second part maybe.
we are so limited by the time, but this time we decided for this broadcast to work with slot of 1 hour. There will be a continuation, hopefully. Leda, I give you the last words.
Oh, no pressure at all. I do hope that artists keep being able to have some sort of a studio, not only for me to go to visit, but also so that they can develop their practice, even though you disagree something there. I feel like. But if they want.
Disagree stuff, so.
If they want to have a studio, I hope they have the means to do it. Of course, you start small and then you potentially expand. Yeah.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. It was great discussing all together around this studio practice. I encourage, of course, everyone to visit The Visit, a podcast, a great archive of studio practice.